Seattle's autumn mornings always begin with a drizzle. At a corner in downtown, shaded by the Smith Tower, the silver sign of Lindsay Wang's law office gleamed in the morning sun. After a decade of independence from a major law firm, Lindsay had built her own fortress over 10 years. At 43, Lindsay sat at her desk by the window on the 15th floor, reviewing documents for a new litigation case. Her office walls were adorned with her Stanford Law School diploma and numerous awards, including the Washington State Women Entrepreneur Award. Beside these, there was a family photo of her 12-year-old daughter Madison and her husband Thomas, who was currently on a work assignment in Hong Kong. In the sunlit photo, the three of them were smiling happily. "Mizu Wang, here are the documents for the 9 a.m. client meeting," said Olivia, her secretary, bringing in perfectly organized documents. Her meticulous work had earned Lindsay's deep trust. "Thank you. By the way, did you hear anything from Madison's school?" "Yes, they've changed the choir practice schedule. I forwarded the email to you." Lindsay checked the time. It was only 8:15 a.m. Madison would be on the school bus by then. Her smartphone chimed, and as expected, a message from Madison popped up. "Mom, I got full marks on my math test. I've also memorized the song for the next concert perfectly, so you must come to hear it." Lindsay couldn't help but smile. Her daughter had inherited her intelligence and her father's kindness, not to mention a talent for music. As she typed her reply, she thought of her husband in Hong Kong. Thomas's assignment at a major global IT firm was set to continue for another 8 months. His absence was lonely, but nightly video calls kept the family bond strong. "Congratulations, Madison. Let's order your favorite Thai food tonight as a special treat. I'll definitely be at the concert. We'll show the video to Dad too." Balancing work and parenting was never easy. However, Lindsay managed it skillfully. She always made sure they had breakfast together, and she tried to get home early for dinner as much as possible. On weekends, they would watch movies or go jogging in the nearby Green Lake Park. With her husband away, the bond between mother and daughter had only grown deeper. "Mizu Wang, it's almost time for your meeting." Olivia's voice brought Lindsay back to reality. The dispute case with a major construction company would be a tough negotiation, but that was what made it rewarding. Before entering the meeting room, Lindsay noticed a message from her mother, Debbie. "Lindsay, about this month's rent." Lindsay sighed softly. Since her father's death, her mother's financial situation had rapidly deteriorated. Her father had seemed a successful businessman, but in reality he had been burdened with substantial debt. The insurance money had vanished into debt repayment, and Debbie started receiving threatening calls from creditors. Using her legal expertise, Lindsay had begun legally protecting and financially supporting her mother. This included paying for her luxury apartment rent and living expenses, a duty she believed was hers as a daughter. Her support extended similarly to her sister Kristen, who had become a single mother after their parents' divorce. Kristen had been struggling with part-time jobs, but covering her son's education costs was beyond her means. When Kristen pleaded for Joseph's future, Lindsay couldn't say no. But now, Lindsay needed to focus on the task at hand. She decided to reply to the message later. Opening the conference room door, Lindsay greeted everyone with her usual smile. "Good morning, everyone. Let's begin our discussion." After the morning meeting, Lindsay looked outside. The drizzle had cleared up, and unusually, the sky was blue. Madison would be in her favorite English class by then. As she opened the door, Olivia came in with new documents. "Final checks for tomorrow's trial. Also, Madison's school contacted us again about the change in the date for next week's parent-teacher meeting." The sky was beginning to fill with rain clouds again. "Mizu Wang, your mother is on the phone." Olivia's voice brought Lindsay back to the present. It was unusual for Debbie to call without waiting a day after sending a message. Calls from her mother were always about money. "I'm sorry I couldn't reply earlier because of work. What's up?" "Lindsay, it's about the rent, and also about Joseph's school trip expenses. Her mother's voice had no hint of hesitation. Lindsay suppressed a deep sigh. Last week it was a new hobby. The week before it was tutoring fees. The demands seemed endless. Let me think about it. I'll check the budget. On the other end of the phone, Lindsay could feel her mother's breath pause. The old Lindsay would have agreed immediately. However, lately, she felt the need to reassess her financial support to her family. Particularly troubling were her mother Debbie and sister Kristen's lifestyles. Their social media were frequently filled with pictures of luxury brands and fine dining. They depict lifestyles that surely couldn't be supported by part-time incomes alone. Thinking of her daughter Madison's future, Lindsay knew she couldn't continue the support indefinitely. Her husband Thomas had also expressed similar concerns during their recent video calls. Helping those you love is important, but creating dependency is not good, he had said. After hanging up with her mother, Lindsay opened her laptop. She began drafting a message in reply to the email from her mother that she had set aside. Please let me reconsider the amount of money I send from next month. I want to discuss this properly, so please tell me a convenient day for you. Before hitting send, Lindsay hesitated for a moment. She wondered what impact this decision would have on her family relationships, but it was a necessary decision. After sending the email, a call from her sister, Kristen, came through immediately. Why now? Anger was evident in her sister's voice. Think about Joseph's future. Let's talk about this calmly, Kristen. Calmly. Kristen's voice trembled. You spare no expense for Madison's needs. Lindsay was taken aback by those words. Indeed, she wanted the best education for Madison. But wasn't that a natural desire for any parent? The conversation ended without resolution. A week passed, and the parent-teacher meeting for Madison was approaching. There was a knock at the office door, and Olivia entered. Here are the final preparations for your business trip tomorrow. You have a morning flight. Thank you, Lindsay interrupted. Call my mother. Check if she can take Madison tomorrow. Normally, Lindsay would avoid leaving her daughter with her mother. But the next day's trial was critical, and she had no other choice. Plus, she was concerned about her mother. Since telling her about the reduction in support, she hadn't heard anything from her. While Kristen had called angrily, her mother's silence was unnerving. Olivia returned. Your mother said of course Joseph will be there too, so they can play together. Lindsay felt uneasy about the quick affirmation. Usually her mother would have more excuses for such requests. She might claim she was feeling ill or had plans with friends. But there was an important trial the following day. The trip was unavoidable. If Madison was to be left with anyone, her grandmother's house was the best option. Yet deep down, a sense of unease grew. During dinner with Madison, Lindsay asked her daughter, "Is it okay for you to stay at Grandma's tomorrow? You can play with Joseph." "Yeah." Madison hesitated, then added, "But lately, Joseph has been avoiding me." Lindsay listened closely to her daughter's words. Joseph's change in behavior, Kristen's irritation, her mother's unnaturally quick agreement to take Madison. All these hinted at something ominous. Yet, unable to define her foreboding, time passed. The next day, in the car to the airport, Lindsay recalled her parting words to her daughter. "Promise me, Madison. If anything happens, call me right away." "I know, Mom. It'll be fine." Madison responded with her usual bright smile. Lindsay left her daughter in her mother's care, watching her wave goodbye in the rearview mirror. Somehow, the sight lingered in her mind. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport was busy with the morning rush. After boarding, Lindsay reviewed her documents for the trial. The dispute with the major construction company was a pivotal case for her law firm. She tried to focus, but couldn't settle down. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be taking off shortly." The flight attendant's announcement echoed in the cabin. Before turning off her cell phone, Lindsay checked for messages one last time. There was nothing from Madison, from Debbie as well. It should have been a normal occurrence, yet Lindsay couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The court session was proceeding smoothly. Lindsay's arguments were precise, and she was overwhelming the opposing counsel. Soon after the session was adjourned, her cell phone suddenly vibrated. It was from Madison. "Mom." With just that one word, Lindsay instinctively knew something terribly wrong had happened. "What's wrong, Madison?" Grandma and the others. "They left without me." Madison's voice was trembling. Lindsay felt the blood drain from her face. "What do you mean? Explain it to me in detail." "I was playing in the yard, and then everyone got in the car and left. Joseph, Grandma, and Aunt Kristen haven't come back." Lindsay's hands trembled. "Where are you now?" "At Grandma's house." "What should I do?" "Stay right there. I'm going to call the police immediately." Right after hanging up, Lindsay called her mother, Debbie. The phone rang several times. When it finally connected, her mother's voice was unnervingly calm. "I'm about to board a plane." With that, she hung up abruptly. Anger boiled inside Lindsay. She immediately reported it to the police. She explained that her 12-year-old daughter had been intentionally abandoned by her grandmother and aunt. She also contacted her office staff to prepare for any necessary legal proceedings. "Olivia, prepare the paperwork for a restraining order, and hurry up the procedures to stop all transfers to my mother and Christine's bank accounts." "Yes, I'll get on it right away." While booking the next flight back to Seattle, Lindsay called Madison again. "Madison, a police car is on its way there. I'll be back as soon as I can." "Okay." Madison's voice sounded like she was about to cry. "Mom, I'm scared." "It's okay, you haven't done anything wrong. I'll be there soon." After hanging up, Lindsay struggled to control her emotions. Why would her mother and sister do such a thing? Abandoning a 12-year-old child like that was clear child neglect. Throughout her journey to the airport, Lindsay kept in touch with the police. She was informed that a patrol car had arrived at the scene and Madison was safely secured. The security camera at her mother's house showed Debbie and Kristen laughing as they got into the car. This was no accident. It was a deliberate act. On the plane back to Seattle, Lindsay's hands trembled as she took notes in her notebook. Timelines, evidence, necessary legal steps. She couldn't let her emotions get the better of her. She had to handle this calmly, as a lawyer should. When she arrived at her mother's house, Madison was with a police officer. The moment Lindsay saw her daughter, she nearly let all her emotions overflow. "Mom." Madison ran towards her, crying. Lindsay hugged her daughter tightly. She could feel her small body shaking. "You did really well. It's all okay now." A police officer approached them. "We've reviewed the footage from the security camera. It clearly shows a premeditated act. Would you like to file a complaint?" Lindsay paused for a moment, then resolved herself. "Yes, and I will also apply for a restraining order." At that moment, Lindsay's cell phone rang. It was from her mother. She rejected the call. Protecting her daughter was her top priority now. On the way home, Madison began to slowly recount what had happened. "Joseph suddenly became cold to me. And then when I was playing alone in the garden, I heard the sound of the lock and everyone was gone." Lindsay listened to her daughter while piecing together the events. The change in behavior of her mother and Kristen since she had informed them of the support review, Joseph's behavior, and the events of today. Everything was connected. Debbie had used Madison to intimidate Lindsay and coerce her into continuing her support. And Kristen saw it as an opportunity to vent her jealousy towards her successful sister. Upon arriving home, Lindsay immediately contacted her office. "Olivia, cancel all appointments starting tomorrow and arrange for a psychologist appointment for Madison." That day marked a significant change in their family's relationships. But it was an unavoidable choice. Lindsay had to protect her daughter and put an end to the distorted family dynamics. A heavy atmosphere hung in Lindsay's office conference room. Documents were neatly arranged on the table. Screenshots from the security camera, the initial police report, the application for a restraining order. Everything testified to the gravity of the previous day's events. Mizu Wang, your mother has called. Olivia quietly informed her. It's the 10th call this morning. Log the calls. But no need to respond. The video call with her husband Thomas in Hong Kong had been completed early in the morning. He had offered to return immediately, but Lindsay declined. She wanted to avoid emotional decisions. Everything needed to be handled legally and definitively. The office's consulting attorney, Wayne Harrison, entered. A longtime friend, he had come immediately upon hearing about the situation. I've reviewed all the documents. The restraining order will undoubtedly be issued. The issue is what comes next. Lindsay nodded silently. I've already started the process to completely stop the financial support. That's a wise decision, Wayne continued while reviewing the documents. But we need to consider their reaction, especially the possibility of defamation in public. At that moment, Lindsay's smartphone vibrated. It was a message from her mother via an SNS account she hadn't checked in a long time. Why did you call the police? It's a family matter. Madison wasn't in any danger, it was just a lesson. Lindsay's hands shook. A lesson? Leaving a 12-year-old child behind as a lesson? There was a twisted intent to make Lindsay and Madison realize their vulnerability. Don't get emotional, Wayne quietly advised. They will certainly try to use your reaction against you. He was right. Lindsay took a deep breath and calmed herself. Her over 20 years of experience as a lawyer was being tested. Did you manage to get an appointment for Madison's psychological counseling? Lindsay asked Olivia. Yes, tomorrow at 3 p.m. with Dr. Allison Gale. Her daughter's psychological care was the highest priority. Last night, Madison had been tormented by nightmares. Waking up, she'd anxiously asked, Mom, are you still here? Hearing that, Lindsay's heart felt like it was being torn apart. Lindsay, Wayne spoke in a low voice. Do you know your mother and Christine's financial situation? Yes. My mother's rent, Joseph's school fees, and other living expenses. Stopping all that will make their lives unsustainable. I know, but that's the consequence of their choices. Then a call came from the office reception. Kristen was there. Turn her away, Lindsay instructed immediately. However, Kristen's voice could be heard in the hallway. Lindsay, listen to me. It was for Madison's sake. Lindsay closed her eyes. Kristen thought by hurting Madison, she could control Lindsay. Her sister's cries brought back memories of their childhood. The smiles, the days they played together. Now, those memories were like deep cracks in ice. Should I call security? Olivia asked, concerned. Please do. A few minutes later, Kristen's voice faded away. But its echo lingered heavily in the conference room. It's not over yet, Lindsay said quietly. They will surely try something. Wayne nodded silently. That's why it's crucial to document everything and preserve evidence. That was exactly right. To not be swayed by emotions and to record everything. That was the top priority. In the afternoon, Lindsay left the office early. It was time to pick up Madison from school. Upon arrival, she saw her daughter chatting happily with friends. However, as soon as Madison saw her mother, she ran over. Mom, you came to pick me up just like you promised. Hearing this, Lindsay's heart ached. The fear of being abandoned still lingered deep within her daughter. Of course. I will never leave you behind. On the way home, Madison talked about her day at school. It was a normal conversation. Yet Lindsay felt the depth of her wounds through her occasionally anxious expressions. When they got home, there was a message from Debbie on the answering machine. Lindsay, please, let's talk. It's terrible for the family to fall apart over something like this. Lindsay deleted the message before it even finished. There was no going back. This was not merely a family dispute, but a clear act of harm. At night, after Madison had gone to sleep, Lindsay was in the study preparing for the next day. The restraining order hearing, counseling appointments, and final checks on stopping financial support. Everything had to proceed without delay. It was the only way to protect her daughter and herself. A month had passed, and Lindsay was looking at the changing autumn scenery from the office window. On her desk monitor, there were notifications of Debbie's unpaid rent and Joseph's expulsion from school. After the restraining order was issued and all financial support was stopped, the anticipated consequences had begun to manifest one after another. Olivia brought in new documents. They were communications from Debbie and Kristen's representative. Initially, they had threatened to sue Lindsay for defamation. However, the clear evidence from the security camera footage made those threats empty. Schedule a meeting with their representative, Lindsay instructed calmly. She was determined to avoid emotional responses and handle everything through legal procedures. That was the best way to protect herself and her daughter. The previous night, Madison had a peaceful night for the first time in a while. The bi-weekly counseling was starting to show effects. According to Dr. Gale, Madison's recovery was progressing well. Still, the occasional anxious expressions tightened Lindsay's heart. "Your mother has moved out." Olivia's voice brought Lindsay back to reality. She left the upscale apartment in Bellevue last week. She was 3 months behind on rent. Lindsay nodded quietly. Her mother's new address was a state housing unit in the outskirts of downtown. It was a place unimaginable from her once elegant lifestyle. "There's also news about Kristen," Olivia continued. "Joseph's father, having heard about their plight during a visit, has gained custody. Kristen has been ordered to pay child support. She's living with your mother now." Just then, Wayne entered with new information. "There's something you should know," he began carefully. "Yesterday, Kristen was caught shoplifting at a local supermarket. It seems to have been settled by a plea agreement." Lindsay closed her eyes. Her sister's downfall was starkly apparent. "And there's more," Wayne continued. "Debbie was seen lining up at a church charity. She was there to receive food assistance. Such assistance would have been unthinkable for her mother in the past. The days when she enjoyed shopping at luxury boutiques felt like a distant past. All her posts on social media have been deleted as well," Olivia continued the report. "Photos of luxury brands and memories of overseas trips that had been posted before are all gone. The life of pretense had completely collapsed. The days painted over with vanity and dependence had crumbled entirely." From a legal standpoint, Wayne, as an expert, added his perspective. "Their current situation underscores the justification for discontinuing the support. It proves that their former luxurious lifestyle was entirely dependent on your financial aid." Lindsay nodded silently, processing the situation with restrained emotion. This was the result of a decision she had made, a necessary consequence. "Mom, look." In the afternoon, when Madison returned from school, she excitedly showed Lindsay her artwork. "My teacher said we should enter it in the art exhibition." Seeing her daughter's smile, Lindsay felt a sense of relief. Madison had been incredibly strong. Although her school performance had temporarily dropped after the incident, it was now returning to its previous level. "Congratulations, it's a wonderful piece." During a video call with Thomas, he too was pleased to hear about Madison's recovery. He had managed to shorten his assignment abroad and was scheduled to return next month. At the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport arrival lobby, Lindsay and Madison waited for Thomas to return from Hong Kong. "Dad's here," Madison exclaimed joyfully. "Welcome back," Lindsay said as she hugged her husband. "It's good to be all together again." As they got into the car, Thomas turned to speak to Madison in the back seat. "How's school, Madison?" "Yeah, it's fun. Next week is the Winter Music Festival. I've got a solo part on the piano." Madison's voice lacked the anxiety it once held. She was showing a maturity beyond her 12 years. Normal family times, normal happiness. Yet, Lindsay deeply felt that such normalcy was anything but taken for granted. The next morning, Lindsay went to the office early. There was a letter from her mother on her desk, marked as already opened. It had been delivered through legal procedures. "Lindsay, I won't ask for forgiveness anymore. I just hope you and Madison are happy." After reading the letter, Lindsay sighed deeply. Forgiving and mending the relationship were two separate matters. Now, she wanted to focus on building a new family structure. No more fears, no more worries. When she got home, Thomas had already returned and started preparing dinner. The delicious smell wafted from the kitchen. Madison had started practicing the piano in the living room. Her parents listened attentively to her playing. The music filled the room,